Hey, Thrive Loud fans, Lou Diamond here. We are living in tough, often confusing times, and there are a lot of social issues out there. And I think everyone is beginning to understand the importance of addressing and talking about these issues. Prink Shop has a simple mission: to talk about the things that matter, lend a hand to those in need, and have fun all the while. The team at Prink Shop provides their community with something to wear that they care about, create a dialogue, and spread the word in a positive, affirmative tone. So check out all of their clothing and accessories that literally spell out the issues that everyone is talking about. Their quotes, sayings, and messages are true conversation starters and make great gifts for the holiday season. Head on over to prinkshop.com and use the promo code THRIVELOUD to get free shipping throughout the holiday season. Prink Shop. We've got issues.
Think big, think positive. Never show any sign of weakness. Always go for the throat. Buy low, sell high. Fear, that's the other guy's problem. Nothing you have ever witnessed will prepare you for the absolute carnage you're about to witness. It's Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Today on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
It's not a nicety. It's not something that we're going to need to worry about our grandchildren. This is happening now, and it's going to increase in terms of the detrimental effects, not just to Florida, but through the Midwest with the growing seasons and everything else. It's become noticeable in our lifetime, not just our grandkids or our kids right now, and so it needs to be addressed.
Now I'm getting really excited. Okay, this is the part where we're going to get loud.
Holy crap, here we go.
I like telling stories.
I learn best through experiences.
Everything I do is because of everything I did.
Talk about having maximum impact while having a ton of fun.
When you can net through that, what you do leave behind for your listener will have more impact.
Wow, bring it on.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you an individual who, after a 15-year career in professional hockey, where he was a 3-time NHL All-Star and Stanley Cup champion, this specific gentleman received his degree in ethics, politics, and economics with a concentration in environmental politics from Yale University. I'm a Cornellian, so I'm just had to boo you on the Yale thing, but we'll just keep going there. He then went on to co-found Environmental Capital Partners, a $100 million private equity fund focused on resource efficiency. He also created Healthy Planet Partners, LLC, a fund to finance and manage the deployment of renewable energy technologies and energy-saving, retrofits in the C&I space to reduce their operating costs and ecological footprint. Thrive Loud listeners, New York Rangers great Mike Richter. Mike, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Lou.
So this is kind of exciting and interesting. We're going to bring in eventually our other guest here and how I got to be here with Mike. Mike, I'll let those know who know me very well. I'm a diehard New York sports fan, but a huge New York Rangers fan. I've got one friend of mine, by the way, who texted me beforehand going, "You're going to be where? What?" That's a shout out to you, Jay. You'll get this later. But anyway, what we wanted to hear, and what I know our listeners love to understand, is a little bit of your journey from after you left hockey into this space, which seems to be something that you're very concerned about personally, about the sustainability of our world. Yeah. So you leave hockey, they hang some banners up in certain places. Tell me about the move and your transition over.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. It is an enormous passion for me, and it's something that I don't feel it's clearly grown, but it's always been almost an obvious thing to do. While I was playing, you have interests outside of your sport, and I read a lot of books on everything from resource efficiency to the coming crisis in limited amounts of energy and what's this going to affect geopolitically. And the big thing that just interests me, and I don't particularly have a background in finance. My father did, and that's why I'm sitting in the room with my partner right now, Rob Krugel, is that intersection of finance and the environment, resources. It's the foundation of our economy, and the more efficient you can be with these things, clearly the better off you're going to be. And so just as a practical matter, any enterprise that has more efficient use of resources is one that's going to thrive in the long run. And so, these terms, sustainability, green, environmentalism, they're so weighted down with the political, and we're just talking about being efficient with resources, and it's the most practical thing on earth. My parents grew up in the Depression. You turned out lights when you left the room. You didn't waste food. That's just a smart thing to do,
right? And
that's all we're doing here.
Okay, so help me understand what here is. So because you are in a group now that has several different things going on. So I'll let you direct the ones that you want to focus on first, and we'll drill down on each one.
Yeah, just as confusingly, Brightcore Energy really is the foundational, the underpinnings of what we're trying to accomplish, and that resource efficiency comes really in the form of light bulbs right now. Right. It is the energy conservation measure that pays back the quickest, the most, with the best outcome in terms of quality. So what we're doing is replacing older, less efficient technology with better, more efficient technology. What's beautiful about it is you save money on your operating costs, i.e. you're using less energy to get the same light output. And people glaze over with this, but the numbers are staggering, and we'll get into them in a second. But if I were to tell you that I'm going to change the carburetor on your car, and it's going to go from 20 miles a gallon to 100 miles a gallon, and you're going to save so much money that it'll pay for the upgrades within 6 months, 2 years, and it'll last another decade or two, and it'll make the environment cleaner, and it'll require less maintenance, you'd say, sign me up. Right. It's something you can relate to, and you're saying that's too good to be true. That is exactly what happens with light bulbs. These bulbs that we're putting in homes right now, and that's an offshoot of this C&I business, this secondary business we have, you can save 80% on a light bulb. I mean, there's 90 million households in America. That is a lot of energy saved. That's a lot of dollars. There's billions of dollars saved. And, in a very selfish manner, I'm seeing an economic opportunity, a financial opportunity for the private for-profit company that I run. And so, this is a win for the environment for sure, but it's a win for the customer who buys our product and services, and it's a win for me who's selling it. And it should win in the long run.
It's funny because the way that we initially tried to connect you guys was on a program that only ran for a short while that was called Greenbacks, where we looked at how sustainable businesses are. And to your point, the ability for sustainable businesses to make money is one of the most important pieces, because you could be as green as all you want. Right. You need to be green with cash, really, to make sure that it works. What are the hurdles? So it makes perfect sense, whether you're a commercial business, which Brightcore mostly focuses on, going into commercial locations, office buildings, factories. What are the hurdles that you face when you're helping to pitch your services to businesses? Because while it makes so much sense, and it obviously is going to be a savings in the long term, you always seem to everyone runs into, it wouldn't be that easy, and everyone would be selling light bulbs, so to speak.
I think there's three things really, and the first is just apathy. Knocking on somebody's door and say, "Hey, I've got a light bulb." They're going, "Look up skyward, buddy. I've got lots and lots on my roof, and they work pretty well. You turn on your switch, and they go on." But I have a better light bulb. I have one that is going to last a decade or two. I have a light bulb that is going to require less maintenance, and it's going to save you an awful lot of operating costs. But people are busy, and I just think that inertia, plain and simple, everybody wants better. But there's a lot of apathy. There's a lot of inertia that's just built into the system. We're all busy people. I get solicited on my email day to day. People knocking on the door, in the mail. It's very difficult. We're busy people, and someone's trying to sell you something. You usually hang up on them. So I understand that. That's number one. Number two, there's a legacy of pretty bad products out there. So if you think about changing out your regular incandescent bulb in your home to that squiggly thing, nobody liked it. It was ugly. It was dangerous. You're bringing mercury into the house. I remember literally switching them out when I had my second child. And how many times I've dropped the light bulb in my life? Not many. That was the first time I'm looking at this squiggly light bulb with mercury in it saying, "Do not drop," falling down my stairs, bonk, 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 all the way down. It looked like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. I'm like, here it comes, and it never broke. But I'm thinking, that it's not a great product. It was an improvement in terms of efficiency, but it's nowhere to the technological advancement that you have now with the real LEDs. And that's not an LED bulb, but we're kind of being painted with that brush. So I think there was a lot of over-promising on delivering, so, under-delivering, and I think we're fighting that. And the last thing, and it's a very serious thing, there's a capital expense to this, okay? It's better. It saves you money in the long run. In fact, why aren't more people buying Teslas? It's a wonderful product. It's an extraordinarily expensive vehicle, and that's why you're trying to march that thing down. VW is now saying they're going to come out with a $20,000 car that performs similarly in all this. But if that cost of entry on a superior product is so high that you have to have a massive amount of capital sitting around, and that may mean that a light bulb costs $10 as opposed to the thing you're going to go up and buy for $1 conventionally, people won't do it. And that's where our financed options comes in. We're getting rid of that capital burden. And we can talk about that further.
Actually, let's go to that because that's actually a great point. Like you say, the biggest hurdle that people run into is the fact that it's going to cost more to install, to put in the actual infrastructure, and then, oh, by the way, the bulbs themselves.
Yeah.
So they get that price point. You probably hit them with some ROI model that shows them what the turnaround is going to be. Help explain what that process is and what finance options you're now presenting to them.
Exactly. So we all drink the Kool-Aid here on these four walls. We love what we do. We have great pride in what we do, and it works. I mean, we have very, very happy customers. But to knock on the uninitiated's door and say, gee, I've got this great thing. It's going to save you 30, 40, 50% on the cost of operating your lights. Okay, I'm listening, and it's going to give you better light. I'm listening. It's going to help the environment. Okay, that's great. Tell me more. It's going to cost you $500,000 for your school system. It's going to cost you $2 million for the 9 schools that you have. Conversation grinds to a halt. Everybody, and I'm talking about for-profit and not-for-profit, but particularly municipalities, school districts, and whatnot, really have a hard time. There's not a lot of disposable income hanging out, and people don't have it in their homes. And if they do, it may be earmarked for other things. So when we come to a school district, for instance, there are those that might say, you know what, yeah, let's do the gymnasium. That's a $50,000 project, and I know I'm going to be making that back in the first calendar year, and it's going to save me so much operating costs because these long lists, better light quality, all this great stuff. But they're not going to do the whole school district because it's a $1 million project. We can come in and say, look, the savings that are going to be reaped from this thing will actually pay for the upgrades. It's so efficient that you can throw away a perfectly good light bulb in your house and buy a new one and have that thing for another decade. And every year, you're going to be saving basically the cost of that thing, maybe every 2 years. So in the end, if you look at the cumulative savings for that $1 million project, it can be close to $500,000 over the number of years that we expect this thing to last. So it's huge, but that capital hurdle becomes a problem. So we can finance these things. We can do on-bill financing. There's just a lot of creative ways. And Rob, who you'll talk to in a minute, both founding partners here, and this is exactly what I was looking for. It's kind of a perfect marriage. I can get to a lot of people. We have a phenomenal product, but if you can't afford it, it's not going to go too far. These guys were in structured finance in Lehman forever. They built a very successful commercial solar platform. And when you think about solar energy, that the real choke point there was the same thing. Do you have $30,000 to put this on your roof? No. Do you want to go carbon neutral? Yes. Do you want the savings that's generated from it? Yes, but I don't have that money up front. And as soon as they start doing power purchasing agreements where the savings are drawing down on this amortized cost, things start to happen. You're leasing a car. You want the benefit of the transportation it provides rather than owning the car. And that's what's happening with these roof-mounted solar systems now. You're getting the great clean electricity that they provide at a cheaper rate than you otherwise would be paying. And you can draw it down from the savings. And we're doing it with light bulbs. The difference with lighting is, though, the savings are 2, 3, 4 times as much as you would save in solar. It's extraordinary, and I understand it can be extraordinarily boring. But when you look at the numbers, it's really exciting.
So let's talk about, in the spirit of bringing all these things together, I think actually you just – a bell went off in my head here. The biggest challenge is that there's all these new ways of being – more cognizant of sustainability, more ways to do it. Like you said, we've got solar energy as one way to do it. We're trying to change the wheels of a tire while moving on a highway, and we're all trying to figure out what's the best wheel to put on the car. And what have been the initiatives in the industry? Because the industry is kind of fighting, hey, you're trying to get your particular space as the one that people should be looking at. Someone else is highlighting their new technology. Has there been initiatives where people have started to say, hey, we're all good for the environment, we're all going to try to work together? Has there been a sense of coalesce across the industry?
In some manners, yes, but I think the technology has to get up. If you've seen what's happened even in the last 3 years, the cost curve for these products have come down so dramatically, and I think solar energy, price per kilowatt hour has come down, I think, 50% in the last 5 years, maybe?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pass it over to Rob as well, so you both can opine here. Rob Krugel, introduce yourself.
Great. Hi, this is Rob Krugel. I'm one of the founders of Brightcore Energy and BFranklin, which is our consumer-oriented business that Mike was referring to. But, yeah, I think at the end of the day, economics really drive a lot of this adoption. As technological advancement has occurred, as improvements in efficiency of whether it's solar, whether it's battery storage, whether it's LED lighting, other energy efficient technologies, as those cost curves have come down, we see more and more adoption.
And I think that's precisely what's happened. It will happen in other conservation measures. The battery technology is a good example. Tesla has the wall battery, and there's other competitors out there. They're expensive, relatively speaking, but that cost will come down as scale's gained. And in probably within a decade, we'll all have them in our homes. Let's hope. Look what's happening with the cars right now. I mean, that was a pipe dream, it seemed, 10 years ago. Volkswagen's coming out and they're saying they're going to be producing hundreds of thousands of these. Competition has taken place here. Tesla's put such a good product out there that it's really jolted the industry, right? And I think this is something that I really want to underscore. This isn't about green sustainability, however you define it only. This is, in a word, I'd like to call it better. We're trying to improve the technology, the functionality, the experience for the customer with these products and services. Uber is an improvement. Why wait for a cab that may or may not come? I can order this thing. Everything has its growing pains and learning curve and all this kind of stuff. But boy, it's a hell of an idea, and it makes transportation great. I've got young kids. It's probably put a dent in drunk driving for adults. I mean, on and on. The benefits are amazing here in the suburbs where we're speaking. That's a better model. An electric car is a more efficient car. An LED light is a superior. I mean, the incandescent's been there for over a century. It hasn't changed much, and people just had this ossified understanding of what to expect. And now these things have controls and ability to dial in the type of light you want, and when it comes on, you can, just like these smart home systems, you can start to turn on the heat and everything else from a distance. You're living in a better world. And I think that sometimes is what gets lost. Like, do I care about the spotted owl? I'm trying to put food on my table for my kids. It is not about the spotted owl primarily. It's about those kids at the table. Do they have a better experience? And more and more people are starting to understand that.
Hey there! If you're enjoying how Lou is connecting with this guest in this interview, then just imagine how impactful he can be in person. As an international speaker and consultant, Lou Diamond is all about getting organizations to thrive through the power of connecting. To learn more about how you can hire Lou to speak at your company, your conference, or your next event, head on over to loudiamond.net and click the Book Lou button to learn more. He'll truly get everyone to thrive loud. All right, let's get back to the show.
I want to, and Rob, I want to go back to you here for a sec because this is interesting. You have a whole slew of different companies and businesses that you guys are focused on here. Can you share with the listeners a little bit the range of it? Because it is important. While prices right now are at a premium, this is the window for those that worked in finance and Wall Street in the past. This unique time that we're in, there's a tremendous opportunity to grab great revenue for a great organization because before it becomes all commoditized, this is that window where it's happening. So maybe give a little perspective of the space and what else you guys are looking at.
Great. Yeah, I think that the common theme is around energy efficiency and sustainability. Mike mentioned solar. So prior to starting these lighting businesses, I and our third partner had a commercial solar business, which we started after leaving Lehman. Grew it to a pretty significant size and sold it to a public utility who was looking to get into that segment of the market where we're helping all sorts of businesses and schools and other commercial entities enjoy the benefits of on-site solar, achieving their sustainability objectives without investing capital. There was a finance element to what we did, but I think it's just this general movement towards being efficient with our resources and being efficient with our energy, both how we produce it, how we use it, how we can use it more efficiently. And so our focus, as Mike's been talking about, is really around lighting. It's the sort of proverbial low-hanging fruit. We see a really exciting opportunity at the homeowner level. A business we've launched recently called BFranklin, where we're trying to really change behavior. For decades, consumers don't really think about lighting. It's admittedly not the most exciting thing in the world, yet it's critically important, because I think we'd all agree that if we didn't have light in our homes, it would not be a very enjoyable existence in the evenings. So for decades, consumers have only thought about replacing light bulbs when bulbs are burnt out. And, a couple bulbs may burn out in a room. It gets to the point where it's a little too dark. You go in your utility closet, see if you have that 60-watt bulb there. If not, you run over to Home Depot or the local hardware store. Well, with LEDs, we're dealing with a totally transformative technology that, as Mike mentioned earlier, uses 80% less energy, has a 10 times longer useful life, meaning if you put an LED in your home, chances are you will not have to change that light bulb for the duration of your time in that home. And in fact, the next buyer of the home probably won't need to change it for some period of time as well. And there are huge aesthetic benefits just given the flexibility of the technology. Despite all of this, as we were kind of developing the business plan for BFranklin, we did a bunch of consumer research as well as reflected on our own experiences and realized that consumers were still changing one light bulb at a time. And so we've recently launched this business which is really trying to change behavior and trying to get homeowners to upgrade their entire home to LEDs in one shot, enjoy all these tremendous benefits. We've got a pretty clever, we think, business model innovation where I'll call it sort of experiential selling, where we've curated a trial kit of a dozen of the most common light bulbs that you would find in the typical home. We ship it to the consumer free of charge. They try it. They figure out which bulbs are the bulbs that they need, and then they order all the bulbs on the site and ideally pass that trial kit to a friend so that we ultimately have this kit sort of traveling around from house to house. If we step back and think about it, if we're successful at penetrating just a fraction of the homes in this country, the aggregate impact on reducing carbon footprint is massive, and that's what's really exciting.
That's awesome. I'm just laughing a little bit because the two of them really do light up, pun intended, when they talk about this, and I think it's important. I've noticed this from a lot of people who are focused on sustainability, that you have to have this passion behind something like this because, like you said, as simple as it might be just thinking about a light bulb, we are changing behavior, we're changing things that are better for the environment, and more just about every aspect of every company, every business is literally – there are rankings now as to which companies to work for are being the most conscious of being sustainable. So all of that is key to this entire story, and I think it's great what you guys are doing, and kudos to both of you. I know how my listeners work, and they like information. So some information that they really want to know actually is, how does a guy who used to put himself in front of fast-moving projectiles now think about doing what you're doing now? Can you explain, Mike, a little bit about, okay, this is a different role, this is entrepreneurial, but it's also completely different from what you used to be doing. What have you taken from the ice into the business world?
Good question. I think it does seem kind of incongruous, but it's not. I mean, this is based on performance. My home performs better than it did 6 months ago when I changed out all the bulbs. I did a trial kit with that same concept we had, and I was shocked. I understand it conceptually. I get it. This light's going to be more efficient. It's going to look better. I can dial in precisely what I want in one child's room versus, our kitchen and everything else. This home functions better, and there's not a business out there, there's not a person out there that's worth much that doesn't have some degree of demand on their performance, right? I mean, that's what professional sports is. That's what schooling is. That's what the working world is. That's what life is. And so I find it funny where, do you want to have your building, your car, your home, your business have any degree of inefficiency? You would never put up with an employee that would be that inefficient. Why would you do it in the infrastructure of your entire company? So I think there is that kind of common thread. But if you're asking just how do you go from one world sitting in a net to sitting at a desk, well, yeah, there's a real big difference in terms of the feedback. That's my maybe biggest thing. I know when I didn't have a good game, there's 18,000 people that would be booing you, and that's my home rink when you let in a goal. You know when you did something wrong. It takes a long time to understand the feedback mechanism, and we have a pretty darn good process here from very experienced people going through a process. It's not haphazard. What works, what doesn't? What's the feedback you're getting from the marketplace? How did this customer react? Why did they delay? Why did they jump here? But I found that to be difficult when I first really sat at a desk job at Environmental Capital Partners. I'm thinking, well, I could go months without knowing that I'm actually going down the wrong rabbit hole here. But, I mean, there's enough experience, hopefully, that you have around you that you can course correct. I think one thing you do have to have, I know one thing you have to have is, the personal discipline that you have to have as a one of 700 players in the NHL to be able to keep your job is real, and that helps get you up in the morning and do the right things and do that course correcting that's necessary. But you also have to have patience. Yeah. So much of life, I'm coaching 14-year-olds now, and I think it's a very difficult thing, particularly when these are high-end players, when they're dealing with failure. You missed opportunities, your mistakes, and they happen all the time. We'll pitch somebody who doesn't understand our product. We'll make a mistake on how we spec it. You have to come back. You have to reboot. You have to make sure it doesn't happen again. Or just the length of time and the patience you have to keep hoeing that same area before the fruit kind of pops through. And that can be a difficult thing, but you have to have that faith in what you're doing is right and the ability to stick with it.
So a standard question that I ask on Thrive Loud, I'm actually interested to hear this response, Mike. I love asking the guests on the program, when you have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track? And I'm going to give a little and one for this particular question. Is what you do now different from what you did as a player?
There's different demands, but I think you just have to have a professionalism to get a bit of a system and stick to it. Have enough, as I said, patience to push through to the other side. Whether you're in a sustainability space or any entrepreneur, there's no glide. When you go home, there is nobody else working there. We don't have an army of 70 people here. We don't have thousands of people around North America working. You eat what you kill, and you get up in the morning and you have to repeat. And that's both exciting and can be terrifying. It's your backside on the line. It's your money. It's your reputation. I've had the privilege of getting to know Jack Bogle, who started Vanguard, and he had a great line when in an interview someone said, "Well, gee, you really seem like your conviction is there. You don't waver. You think the world is set up this way," and people say, "No, you're dead wrong." He said, "I have to be right. I have truth on my side," and I mean, the only way Jack can say it. But I look at what we're doing. And it's kind of unassailable in a thematically. We're trying to be more efficient with water, with food, with energy. These are fundamental things to the existence of humankind. We better do that. I'm not saying that our company is the only way to go or the only guy that's ever thought about this, or even necessarily will be successful, even if the fundamental reason for being is important. I'm just saying, though, I do get up in the morning knowing that this isn't a nicety. This is crucially important. So, I mean, I tell potential clients, whether you use us or you don't, you have to switch to LEDs. If you're switching to LEDs, you better damn well use us because we're really good. But this is something, all kidding aside, we've got a problem. There's a growing population. There's a growing demand. The first world's trying to be, the third world's trying to be the first world. That demand of energy, of resources, of consumption is nothing but going up, and we do have limited resources, so we have to be more efficient with them.
Awesome. Let's do the plugs here. Rob, if you could, provide us with all the places we can learn more about all the organizations and all the websites, all that stuff like that, if you got that handy, and both of you can provide by now. You've got it on that.
Great. Yeah, as we talked about, Brightcore Energy, which is at brightcoreenergy.com, focused on a whole slew of commercial enterprises. We work primarily in the Northeast, although recently have been kind of expanding our geographic footprint, have done some amazing projects for great customers, high-profile venues, including upgrading parking lighting at Citi Field, doing some work at the Garden, number of school districts that we're really proud of, where the feedback's been great from administrators, teachers, principals, and students, just in terms of the aesthetic benefits and improving the learning environment. So brightcoreenergy.com, it's a turnkey process to help these buildings become more efficient, also providing capital, as we talked about, if the budget is not there. And then on the consumer side, it's BFranklinHome.com. Really business we're super excited about, as we talked about, and hopefully as more and more people adopt it, we'll get some viral nature to it, and really in the aggregate make a huge impact on the planet.
And that's awesome. And I'll put all the links in there. We have other events coming up, as I understand it. So you're still playing hockey, Mike. Explain maybe the special project that you're looking to do or recruit or working on planning, because this is taking things, I think, no pun intended, to a whole new level.
Yes, we are hiring. This is crazy. I still do play a pretty poor game of men's league hockey, and
Why do I find that completely unbelievable?
Oh no, it's
Seriously?
very believable. It's the funnest darn thing in the world. But I think we all started as fans, young kids, and I can't get that out of my system. Although I don't play goalie anymore, because the idea of being lit up by a high school student right now would be too much for my ego to bear.
Fair enough.
So I pretty much dumped the puck in as a defenseman. But oddly enough, I've gotten into a fair number of really interesting not-for-profits and efforts, sometimes events, sometimes whole organizations, like the Green Sports group. NRDC has done an awful lot with sports and the environment. Why? It cuts across political lines. It cuts across all parts of our society, and really gives platform to a lot of the problems and potential solutions that we're facing. And one of the most unique ones that has come across my desk ever happened about 2 months ago. The NHL has been excellent with NHL Green. They've done a lot out west with gallons for goals, and the prepared but unused food that goes into a game that has enough, say, hot dogs to feed 20,000 people at the Garden. Maybe 10,000 of those are going to end up in a landfill, never touched. What do you do with them? Well, instead of throwing them away, you take them to homeless shelters and feed. And last year they fed over 200,000 meals. I mean, the
I don't know why we're giving away the hot dogs, but
yeah. But these are one that would end up in landfills. So
Right.
I mean, there's just really creative ways of having a lot of wins here, where homeless people get a meal. The venue, like the Garden, avoids a tipping fee into a landfill. The environmental concerns of all that food waste, turning into methane gas, is actually useful. So these are things I get excited about, and I think government, not-for-profit, and certainly for-profit organizations have to band together to address some of these massive problems we have. It's not going to happen by itself. So Slava Fedoslov, the great Russian defenseman, now has a political career in Russia, and came to Gary Bettman with the NHL and said, I want to do something to draw attention to the crisis of climate change. And Gary, very wise man, says, I'll help as much as I can, but understand we run a league here. I can't tell the 31 owners what to do and how to do it, but we do have a platform, so we can be helpful. And he said, well, I'm trying to have a hockey game called The Last Game in the North Pole.
So crazy.
Because the poles are being affected
Right.
disproportionately by climate change, and the ice is literally melting. There's never been a public game of record in the North Pole that anybody's aware of, and he would like to have that, and it probably will be the last one, because as the years go by, the ice is thinning, and it's truly dangerous. So the UN environmental group is really looking at the destruction that's happened to the poles, and wants to get this on their agenda. So this thing's been accelerated, and they're going to try to get a game together this April. That's the window, truly
very small amount of time.
The weather window that you can actually get in there and have this thing. And yeah, is it a photo op? Yeah, I don't think this is something that a lot of people are keeping score on, but how do you get a mouthpiece large enough to address this problem? And he thinks such a international effort will allow enough media attention to then have this game, whether it's half an hour or an hour or a day, but it's truly a lot of logistics to get things set in there, to land planes and all that stuff. And yes, there is an issue that has an environmental footprint itself.
Right.
However, under the circumstances, and some would call it a crisis of the climate, you need to do something to change the direction where we're going, and then that can be the basis for a forum for scientists and leaders of the world to come together and have not just a photo op and a press conference, but true follow-up. And, I really applaud his effort. Do I think it's going to change the world? I don't know. But does it have the possibility of maybe moving us in the right direction? Absolutely. So, I had lunch with him a couple months ago, and the plan is as crazy as he is serious about it. And he very soberly looks you in the eye and says, we have to do this. We have no choice. And I just thought it was such a interesting and unlikely place for it to come from that you have to say yes. And so Yao Ming, Johnny McEnroe said he has interest. I mean, people from all over the sports world, and the president of Finland, Pope Francis, has blessed this thing and is an honorary captain for the red team, which of course is Slava's team. So I apparently am on the blue team. I've said yes myself, so I don't know who we're going to resurrect to be our honorary captain. But that idea of having a truly, unequaled format to start to have a conversation on this, it's not a nicety. It's not something that we're going to need to worry about our grandchildren. This is happening now. And it's going to increase in terms of the detrimental effects, not just to Florida, but through the Midwest with the growing seasons and everything else. It's become noticeable in our lifetime, not just our grandkids or our kids right now. And so it needs to be addressed. And there's great people putting their minds to it, but the voice has got to get out there, and he's giving voice to it.
Oh, I think this is great. And by the way, we do things called a mini-sode here, where we take pieces of an interview after it's aired, and we'll put it out there. And if we're able to coordinate it and promote more of the event as it comes in, we will do that.
Yeah, so, you have to get Slavo on here. He's a very compelling man, and this idea is audacious,
he's very
but it's
big.
fantastic.
I'm very scared of him, actually. Now.
I am too. That's why I said yes.
Anyway, this has been great. Let's just wrap it up with our signature question. Mike Richter, your all-time favorite movie?
Wow. I took such a large hiatus from movies, having 3 kids in 4 years, that, it was mostly Barney for me for a little while there. But I really like documentaries because I'm boring, but I love comedy, and Spinal Tap's one of my favorites.
But this one goes to 11. So we got to go going on well. That's great stuff. Rob, we'll even get you in one here. Your all-time favorite movie?
All-time favorite movie? I guess I would have to go back to the high school years and say Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Sounds great.
2 classics in there. Rob, Mike Richter, this has been spectacular. Thank you guys for coming on. It's been truly great. I think you guys are really epitomizing what Thrive Loud is all about, from a light bulb to trying to save the world.
Thank you so much for having us. This is a blast.
Absolutely. And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
This is a top to what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
and amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's 1 louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes, be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is, if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. 1 louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.